Hello, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. My name is Srinivas Angara, and I'm going to show you how declarative programs can drive faster return on your investments in modern data warehouse solutions. I'm assuming that you're watching this video after reading my blog. If you haven't read my blog, there's a link in the comment section that will take you to my blog. In my blog, I was making a case that you can achieve faster, higher return of investment by focusing on the man hours or the effort required to implement a data warehouse solution. In this short session, I want to show you how you can achieve that. Before I get started, I want to thank Dirar Al-Hussein. If you're looking to master DataBricks technology, I highly recommend taking his courses. His courses are hosted on Udemy. The sample data and helper functions that are part of this presentation are from his coursework. As I said in my blog, there's a presentation by Michael Armbrust on YouTube. This presentation was made during DataBricks Data and AI Summit in the summer of this year. In that presentation, Michael talks about Delta Live tables, DLT tables, and all the cool new features that DataBricks is rolling out. At the very beginning of his presentation, he says, declarative programs specify what should be done, not how to do it. I repeat that. Declarative programs specify what should be done, not how to do it. I found this to be profound and a very powerful statement. I now believe that we're entering a new era of declarative programming. I want to show you what that means. So let's get started. And now I'm going into my DataBricks workspace. So let me share my screen. So I'm showing you, and this is the data flow diagram of Autoloader. Data ingestion is the first step in any data warehouse implementation. Autoloader provides two ways to ingest data: file notification and directory listing. In this short video, I want to focus on file notification. Our objective is to upload files as they arrive in the landing zone onto a Delta Lake table. This Delta Lake table is in the bronze layer of our modern data warehouse. When the file arrives in our storage account, an event is triggered. This event contains file name and other information that is put on a queue. A structured streaming program is actively monitoring the queue, and when the message arrives, it springs into action. It springs into action as soon as the message arrives. This is our classic event-driven paradigm that's been the cornerstone of our implementations for many, many years. So the next step is so this is Autoloader, DataBricks Autoloader in a nutshell. All right, so this is my helper function, and I'm going to run this. And what this helper function is going to do is put, that didn't work. That's okay. So let's do a refresh. All right, I have two files in my landing zone. So I have two files in my landing zone, and for a total of 2,000 records. And we can start with that. It's not a big deal. My helper function copies, puts files in the landing zone. So at this moment, I have two files in my landing zone. And the landing zone is order books, bookstore, orders, raw. So I have two files, two Parquet files. Now we're going into the setup part. Because we're Azure, I have my IDs, all the IDs in the Azure Key Vault. I'm accessing my Key Vault to get all that information. I have a storage account and also a connection string. I'm getting the connection string from the Azure Key Vault. So let's go further down. Now, as I mentioned in my raw folder, I have two files, 01 and 02. Both of them are in Parquet format. What I'm going to do is I will just read one file and show you what the contents are. So as you can see, the contents are very simple. It's got integer, timestamp, strings, and a JSON object. It's just a mix of all different data types. The key thing that I want to notice is it has 1,000 rows. Every file that I put in the landing zone has 1,000 rows. And just to make it easy to understand, nice round number of 1,000 rows. All right, so we just looked at one file in the landing zone. Let's move further. This is our configuration. This is a data dictionary. And when we look at all the different IDs that are configured in this data dictionary, we have file format is Parquet. We have a schema location that points to a folder on the storage account, tenant ID, subscription ID, standard IDs for Microsoft Azure. Next, we have the client ID and the client secret. The client ID is the application ID. The application ID is an enterprise application ID that I created in the Azure. Now, this ID has privileges. It has contributor level privileges on the resource group and also contributed privileges on the storage, queues, and the events. Because remember, we're using file notifications, and our autoloader use file notifications and queues. So we need to have privileges to be able to configure them and connect the dots. So that's why I needed to assign privilege, give those privileges to this application ID. Resource group and a connection string to our storage account. And this is a key part, use notifications. Like I said earlier, we have autoloader uses two ways. One is file notification and directory listing. I'm setting notifications to true. Going further down. Now, this is where the actual code, this is where the real magic happens. Just going to give you guys a moment to absorb this code. It's actually pretty simple, and I'll break it down. So it's got 3 steps. The first step is, first step is read the files. First step is to read the file from the raw folder from the landing zone into a data frame. The second step we're adding 2 columns to that data frame, an ingestion date and a file name. So we read the files, we read the raw data into a data frame, and we added 2 columns, ingestion date and a file name to that data frame. And this is the last step. In this last step, we're writing that data to a table. And that table is called bronze.ordersIn. That's all it is. Now, before I run this, I mean, this is where all the magic happens. This is that 14 lines of code that we need to write to use file notification that's as part of autoloader. So before I run that, I just want to take you in and show you a couple of things. First is I'm going to show you the queues. As you can see, there are no queues defined. And we'll go to events, and there are no events defined. So right now, everything is blank. And we're starting with a clean slate. Now, I'm going to run the cell. So we're firing up our streaming. So streaming is being initialized. and we'll just give it a few seconds for it to start running. A few seconds here. All right, so we got an ID and it's running. So we can look. So we see the high bar. So it processed about 2,000 records here, and we can see that. I'll just minimize this and do a select count on the table, and we should see 2 rows. So here we go. We're seeing 2 rows, and it's telling us in the bronze order we have 2,000 rows, and they came in with 2 different files, and they just landed in like, yeah. So the UTC time and this time are very close. The only way you guys the way you can make this close is because you have to do I believe it's this says 5 and this is 11, so which is about 6 hours. We are 6 hours behind UTC time, so if you minus 6, you should get this time, and that's what it is. I mean, if you notice, the date is 11/12, and here the date is 11/11. So I'm in Minneapolis, and I'm close to midnight, and UTC, it's already next day for them. So that's why you're saying 11/12. All right, that's enough. So let's go back, and I want to show you what happened on the storage side. So previously there were no events. I'm going to refresh this. I don't see why yeah, for some reason that refresh doesn't work. So I'm actually going to go back here into the queues. We can see a queue is created, and if you notice, it says database query AB965, and the way you can tie that is that actually also belongs to the streaming ID AB965. So there we go. This is also AB965, and even on the event side, we'll see something like that. So you can see the event ID is AB965, and we can click on it and look at the configuration. So there is 3 parts to this configuration. So there is a storage account, which is the source. The storage account is triggering the event, and the target is a queue. So the storage account fires an event, and the target, the endpoint, is a queue. Now we can actually look at the filters, see what filters are set for this event on the storage account. So whenever a file is created, I mean, this is what we really care about. Whenever the file is created, immediately this event is fired. So what I'm trying to say is this configuration is very cool. Think about the amount of time you're going to spend as an architect designing this piece. I mean, you're creating a queue, you're creating events, and you're defining a procedure to connect the dots. You're taking security into consideration. You're writing all this you're writing a software architecture document to explain to all the other architects. First is the man hours it takes to write a software architecture document, then bringing everybody into a single room, explaining to them how the solution is going to work. So just think about the man hours that everybody spends on this particular, I mean, this configuration. And Databricks file notification does everything under the cover for you. And this is what I'm saying. All this effort, you're saving all this effort, the man hours effort, and all that is done magically for you by this 14 lines of code. I mean, going into the future, all you're going to do is write this 14 lines of code, and the underlying components that you need to make this work is automatically created for you. This is the power of declarative programming. And also another feature is like, I'm just going to run it again. So we have one more file is loaded, and just for the fun of it, I'll run this query to show you the next file is loaded. And I'll run it once more. And then I'm actually going to go in here and click on this and show you, like, we got 2 spikes because I try to process, I brought in 2 files into the bronze layer. And so now we have, if we run this query, we should see 4. So we have 4 files. And if I go into my storage, actually, this is a little bit interesting. So I don't understand. I mean, like, right now you can see it's coming, it's a little bit behind time. And I'm a little confused because why it is fallen behind on time. So I think maybe a little bit later I should capture that. So I was hoping to see these spikes, but they didn't happen. So let's go back here, and I'll come back to it at the very end. So I mean, just for the fun of it, I'll just load, like, all the files, the remaining files. So I got, like, total of 7 files. Take the number to 7. So if I have 7, that means I should have 7 rows here. 1 row for each. What did I do? Okay, yeah. So that's good. So that is it, folks. So this is really the structured streaming that I was talking about in my blog, and this is what I wanted to show you. And you're just writing this 14 lines of code, and the magic happens. I mean, all the components underneath is set by the queues, and even notifications are created by the autoloader. So I'm just gonna I'm just almost done. So I'm just gonna cap it out for you. So what I did show you was this autoloader. Now I want you to focus on this part of the node. I intentionally didn't talk about this when I first started. Automatically deployed resources. The event notification configuration, the message queue, and connecting these dots is automatically configured for you. So this is a supported feature. So when you write your code on the streaming, you don't have to worry about the queues and things like that. It's done for you. They're automatically configured. So this is an automatically configured piece. So I just have, that is the main gist of my presentation. I wanted to show that you can save, and that's what is going to drive your return on investment. Saving on the man hours on that piece, the configuration. I mean, configuring the underlying components. The effort that you save in terms of man hours is going to accelerate. I mean, is going to help you achieve your return on investment very quickly. All right. So I do have final thoughts. And in my final thoughts, at first, Apache, I mean, like, when I was first looking at Apache Spark, kind of realized that this is more like for companies that want to be on the cutting edge of technology, and where for them, when you adopt new technology, their services, they can distinguish their services by adopting cutting edge technology. So it was at one point, it was for them, but not anymore. This technology is not just for Fortune 500 companies. Small and even medium and even small businesses can adopt modern data warehouse to drive their dashboards. And I'm going to show you how to do that very quickly. The third point that I want to make is that if you have an architect in your job title, like enterprise architect, solution architect, application architect, technical architect, data architect, principal architect, or infrastructure architect, if you're in any of these roles and you have that architect in your job title, pay attention. I urge you to pay attention to declarative programming. Now, declarative programming is not just exclusive to DataBricks. I mean, there are going to be other product companies that are slowly going to talk about declarative programming, and they're going to do it because it drives ROI for their customers, which means you can really roll out solutions at a much faster pace. So if you are looking at how to get started, this is the best way. I mean, like a few years ago, to implement a modern data warehouse, you needed to purchase a lot of computing power, storage. I mean, like for all your data center, I mean, any project started at about $1 million. And I'm talking about just the hardware, purchasing the hardware and getting it to a point where you write your first program. That was, it would have costed somewhere around $500,000 to $1 million. Not anymore. If you start with the cloud infrastructure on a monthly basis, you can start off at about for like $5,000. I mean, that could be your starting point. You can start really small. I mean, that's the advantage of using cloud infrastructure, because initially you're not buying anything. I mean, so early when you try to put in a modern data warehouse, you would actually have to procure all the hardware, software, and the software also was the maintenance, the monitoring, and all those pieces. I mean, you had to purchase those software licenses up front. With cloud infrastructure, you don't have to go. I mean, you can just start off with about $5,000 and iterate. And with each iteration, as you realize your ROI, you can add additional functionality and make it bigger, expand into other business areas, bring in additional repositories into your data warehouse, and you can start very small and grow big. That's the whole idea. I mean, this is a tactical way of adopting this new technology. It's low risk, very low risk, and if you do it right, the rewards are very high. This is my favorite. I strongly believe there is a convergence of very two powerful forces. I talked extensively about declarative programming and how it can drive your ROI. I mean, that's been the main topic of this conversation. So I will focus on the force number 2, which is generative AI. Earlier, I showed you all you had to write is just 14 lines of code. It's just 14 lines of code to ingest files, and that it gives you once only guaranteed delivery and ingestion. It was just 14 lines of code. ChatGPT can write that 14 lines of code in seconds. And to be honest with you, this 14 lines of code, I'm just going back to the original code. This 14 lines of code. So this is the code I was showing you. There's 14 lines of code. And I am just going to show. All right. This code block was written by ChatGPT. I'm telling you guys, this code was written by ChatGPT. I only added, I mean, it took me a while to make ChatGPT write this code, but okay. All right, I forgot the command. I'm on a Mac, so I forgot the command for undo. So what is undo here? Okay, that's not gonna work. I'm gonna cancel this. And okay, I can go back to this notebook, to the previous version. I'm not worried about that. So what I want to do, what I really wanted the point that I was trying to make here is this part. There is a convergence of two very powerful forces: declarative programming and generative AI. ChatGPT can write that 14 lines of code that I was just showing you. It's very easy, and it writes it in seconds. So when these two forces converge, this is going to change the way we deliver solutions. We will have to adapt to this new delivery methodology. And if you have an architect title in your, please pay attention. With that, all right. Thank you very much. And that's all I had. This is really what I want to show you. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any comments, suggestions, please feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn. I'm also going to post this post as a post on the LinkedIn. So if you can respond on the messaging, like as comments, ideas, criticisms, and things like that, I would appreciate that very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and I bid you goodbye. Bye-bye now.